Welcome to episode 5. I'm feeling so alive today. Hey, hey. Welcome.
Oh,
Woo!
and that original.
Episode 5, y'all. We're
If
rocking
we
and
do a new
rolling.
intro song at some point, I might just extrapolate that 30 seconds worth of audio and somehow find a beat to
Yeah.
go with it.
Yes, I wanted
That
to
came from Spirit. That was
original beat
all.
by Amber.
Original beat by
Yeah. That's what you
Beats by
get.
A.
You
Yes.
never know. That's right. Slap an AJ on that mofo. All right, y'all. Welcome to episode 5.
Did you just say slapping AJ on that mofo?
Yeah,
I
those
love
are my
that.
initials.
I know
AJ.
that. I know that. That's why I thought it was just hilarious.
Slapping on
I
that
love it.
mofo.
Whereas if I say it, it feels very wrong somehow.
It does. Like you're slapping
Look, try it. LS. Slap it on that ass.
No, see? No. All of this enters with a no.
I'm gonna slap that LS on that ass. Like all I say, you don't even want to know what I imagine. Like literally being slapped. Like
I mean, these are big hands, but if you can't tell, Amber, what's today's episode topic?
We're talking about dating.
That's
We are talking about
not the birds and the bees.
where advice on dating, right? Today's episode is brought to you by Big Boy.
We're not sponsored yet, but by God, we're trying.
Yes. When the dating life gets too rough.
Yeah. Bake
There
brothers.
you go.
Have you a Bake Bros?
Yes.
We'll get a clearer image to put on there.
Yes.
Yeah. We are not getting paid by them. We are not sponsored by them as of yet. I will get us there. Shall we test out their product while we're here talking about dating? Because
you
it
say
is a fun
we
episode.
like we're holding
Exactly. Like
you're the only
here,
one holding it.
one,
You got
get
it
one,
today.
You get a one. You get a one.
Yes, Amber,
Okay,
let us
well.
all try it. We're gonna live vicariously through you.
Oh, today, yes, come August.
Okay, back on point.
All right, episode 5. This is gonna be a fun one, right? So we're giving advice on when to know when you're ready to date, not just diving into it because you want companionship and you want somebody, right? We want to really get down to the nitty gritty on the real details on when you know it's time for you to step out there, and then we want to also throw in some advice, for you to be in your comfort zone and have that peace of mind that you are in a good place and it's for you, not for everybody else. So let's do this. Big Bros number 1.
Woman.
So the first thing we were going to talk about today as well too, to help frame this conversation is the three of us we're going to talk about what it was like when we were dating our significant other, because part of knowing what the dating world is like now is remembering what it was and not going, boy, it was so easy back then, because it wasn't. It was hard for different reasons, but we had more energy then. But we wanted to take time and share what it was like when we first started dating our significant other. So why don't we go to Amber? And Amber, what was it like when you started dating your man?
Well, let's go down memory lane, shall we? I met my husband strictly pear lemonade. That is not bad. Not bad. I met my husband at an after hours club in Colorado. It's been now shut down for a while now for good reason. But at first it was a fairy tale. And for those of anybody who has, I guess, some sense of fairy tale as a story, not that there was anything wrong with it, but I have to really be careful on how I explain my relationship. So I'm glad we're just keeping to dating part.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I saw eye to eye right off the bat. We both knew that we wanted to build a legacy for our children and grandchildren. We knew that together we wanted to create something that was everlasting that had our print on it together. As time went on, I remember our first date. We went to, now I can't remember if Texas State Brazil was our first date or if his friend's so-called concert was our first date, but they were right around the same time because they were within like a week of each other or two. But the whole thing, like the concert we went to, it was it was very short of that. It was more of a group of people just sitting in a little spot drinking and listening to loud music. And his friend never even put on when or he did when we left. I don't know. But we went to Texas State Brazil. That was a lot of fun. That was I actually have a photo of that. Next time I'll bring it in. I'll share if we want to share a photo. That was my favorite picture. But he taught me a lot in the very beginning of dating, just even that. How to shoot guns. He started teaching me how to defend myself. We talked about the life that we were going to build. We just were always together. Um,
Keep going. I got earbuds in.
no, you're good. It was just a lot of activity. No matter what it was, we were going out to dinner. We would go bowling. We would go play pool a lot. We stopped going to the clubs and whatnot like that. That was like our one and only time. But we did a lot of just activities together. We were always together, and then it turned into a marriage very quickly. We got engaged within 3 months. So the dating was very short for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Lane, would you tell us what it's like to meet Mr. Lane?
Oh my gosh. Even I knew this question was coming to me. It was still just like, oh my gosh. Well,
By the way, pause. Did anybody notice there that she just kind of touched herself? Oh my, Mr. Lane. Like you were petting yourself a little bit and your brain went, stop right here. And so congratulations. But
it's weird how I did this because Amber taught me a little while ago that right here is like the love chakra. And it's weird how I just, when I talked about him, I went here.
I thought you were trying to get yourself all worked up again. I was like, oh my. But anywho.
Connecting her truth in her heart. She's connecting her truth in her heart is what she's doing.
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why that reminded me, but okay, I'm not even I'll wait.
No, now I need to know.
No, we'll do that off recording so we don't go off on a rant that I know is going to go fun.
It was a part of dating. I kind of blanked out on the question. I don't know why, but my husband had
you took twice as strong gummies.
I did. And I smoked earlier, but I cooked dinner. I did a lot. I replanted some plants too. But anyway, no, my husband had a Ram 3500. And if you guys, my husband had a beard and a mustache, and he was a master plumber. So he wasn't big and muscular, but he was just average size. And man, when I tell you that truck and he pulled up in it,
Amber was, it went a little lower.
I feel like I need a safe word in this conversation somewhere. I don't know where, but
Jillian.
Yes, Jillian, follow that.
I don't know if I can. It's gonna sound quite boring. But it's funny because I met my husband in 2007, and I'm pretty sure I met my husband very much back in the early days of Match, when online dating was really first starting to be a thing. And it was funny because I had been on several unsuccessful match dates, and I was really about to be like, you know what, I've had it. This online dating shit is for the birds. I got into the online dating because I like the fact that it puts you in places that you would not normally be in. but it just, I don't know, people weren't posting real pics, people weren't, whatever. And so when he reached out to me through Match, I was like, I don't know, we seemed to have a lot of the same values at the time. And I was kind of leery because he almost seemed at first too good to be true. And then in between when I first met him, well, when I first met him online and when I met him in person, I had gone out on this other date that was just so horrific. I remember telling my friend, like my friend Jackie, I'm done. I've had it. Like I just like no, I don't want to do this whole online dating anymore. I'm getting off of it. I'm disabling my account. I'm deactivating it. And she was like, no, but you got that one guy, the chef. She was like, kept telling me you got the chef, and something about him, Jill. Just go out with him. And I'm like, I don't even know. Cause yeah, he seems nice, but it's probably his representative. Once I get to know him, I'm sure he'll be just like another, but she convinced me to like give him a shot. So we started talking in April and we didn't meet until June. He lived in College Park, Maryland, which is right outside of DC at the time, and I was living in New Jersey. So it was a little juggle as to when we were going to see each other. But the first date, June 14th, I'll never forget, was our first date. And he drove up here from College Park, Maryland, to New Jersey to take me out. And when he rang the doorbell and I opened the door, I tell you, to this day, I have never had a man look at me the way he did. He was just like taken. Like he was just like, oh my gosh. Like it made me blush. It really made me blush to have someone look at me like that. And to this day, I've just never had anyone look at me the way he did. And it was really interesting because the first time when I met him, I was like, he doesn't look like his picture. Like I was a little like, but he came all the way up here. So let's just go ahead with the date. And we went out to dinner and we could not stop talking. Oh my gosh, we could not stop talking. We could not stop laughing. We could not. I mean, it was just such a great like first date. I mean, it was everything went right. And so I don't know, after that I felt like he like dating him was just so much fun. Like it was definitely that like fun honeymoon type of period where, he would make the effort to come up and see me like every week, every weekend he would come up and see me in the beginning, and then we went to like every other week. He would send me flowers, he would send me like little teddy bears, he would, make me mixtapes to let me know like he was thinking about me, or mixing whatever it was, CDs, or that they had with the burner, and um but like all of that, he was really big on chivalry, and that's
Mm.
something that he took throughout dating and into even like our marriage. He never strayed from that. And so dating him, I mean, he really made me like know what it felt like to really just be pursued. That's like really all I
Mm.
remember. Like I just always felt pursued. I love the fact that he was reliable too. When he called, when he said he was going to call, except for one day. And I'll never forget that one day because that's another story for another day. But I mean, he was just reliable. He was just consistent. He was like, and we got engaged about a year later. From the first day that we actually got engaged on our 1 year anniversary. We got engaged because we went back to the same place where we had our first date. and we got engaged there, and we were married a year later. But throughout the dating process, I mean, it was fun. We were always going places, we were always doing things, we were always, and I think it was because we did live long distance. Everything that we tried to do, we tried to like have these phenomenal weekends, like squeeze everything into the weekend and just no sleep until Sunday night when the other person left. And it was just really great experience dating him. I would definitely, yeah, I mean the marriage was great too, but not as great as the dating.
Marriage is rarely as good as dating.
It's so funny. If you just like when we were married, I think we were like about 4 years into our marriage, 4 or 5 years, and it was my birthday, and he took me to Del Frisco's, and I happened to, even though he was trying really hard to not let me see, but I wound up seeing the bill. And then, the bill was something like $430 or something. And so I said, see, this is the difference between dating, going out on a date when you're married and when you're single. Because when you're single and the guy takes you out and he spends like $430, you're like, damn, he really loves me. And oh my gosh, look at, he just did all this and this is so nice. Yes, I'm going to give him some tonight. And whatever.
You're okay. No, but they
Okay.
can't hear you. You're fine.
Okay. But then,
Love you.
but then it's like when you're married and you see the bill, it's like,
Go away.
can we afford this? Well, what's
Mhm.
not
Right.
getting paid this month? What are
Mhm.
you doing? How could you do? Why did you spend so much money?
Did you get a bonus you didn't tell me about?
Yeah.
Right?
What side hustle you doing?
Right.
Exactly. There's so many more questions.
Yeah. What'd you pawn? What'd you sell?
Exactly. Are we going to be in debt next month?
Yeah.
Don't fuck up our credit.
Yes. Yeah, something's kind of lost in translation there.
But but no, dating him was an extremely good time.
Mhm.
Really good time.
I told the story of how I met my wife already, so that's an adventure in of itself. So I'll recount that later, not now, just because I'm talking about the dating side of it. And when we met, I was a senior in college, she was a freshman, and so we had lovely dinners at the cafeteria, or at the we'd have cheap ass pizza brought in, and it was always with our friends, and so the dating component for me and my wife, I don't think we ever really had. In the sense that because after I graduated, then I moved away and went to work, wherever I could find a job. And she was still in school. And so yeah, we'd see each other when we could, but inevitably we were both broke or poor because I'm a college grad with a shit ton of debt. She's a college student. And it's like, no, we're not really getting a chance to go out to fancy meals. But what that did for us was our dating became, long distance in that we were forced to talk. And I don't mean that, forced like, well, you had to. It's like, no, if we're going to spend time with each other, we were talking with one another, and of course it was, back in the early 2000s when you couldn't just call because you had to wait till off peak minutes because you only had so many peak minutes. And I knew she was important when she was one of my top 10, the top 10 that you could call without accounting against your unlimited minutes, and how things have changed. But dating her, for my part, I always expected, or let me phrase that. I don't think I would have been surprised if at some point she would have said, yeah, this isn't working, because I still believe this to this day. She is so far out of my league, both in brains and beauty, that I'm like, you really traded down for this piece of meat, honey. You could have done better. And so anytime we would talk, I'm like, if I'm going to lose the opportunity to be with her, I'm going to do it being myself. I'm not going to lose this opportunity by trying to be some image that I think she wants. Because A, I'm not smart enough to keep that up. image. Just to be clear, I meant keep that image up. Don't read into that beyond that, perverts. But so apparently that wonderfully undiagnosed anxiety and mental health issue there, you know, and just my general ethics made me honest with anything she would ask. And we disagreed on a lot of stuff at times because she had her opinions, I had mine, um but we would talk about it. And I think that the distance ended up bringing us closer. So again, the dating component of it, we I don't think we ever really dated. We were just together. And when I even the story of asking her to marry me was the lead up to it was very sweet. The but the reason to do it, maybe it's hard to explain. I want to be tender to some people who might hear this, and I don't. So all that's to say, it wasn't a storybook fairy tale kind of dating or engagement. It was fairly raw and honest, and so we were together through some very tough times with one another. And each time we'd come through it, at least for my part, I kept thinking, I don't know why the hell she's still with me, but I'm not going to miss any chance I can here. And so I think one of the reasons I wanted us to start this episode off by talking about dating was to reflect the fact that dating looks very different now compared to what it did. And it would be, I think, easy to say, well, it's just so hard now. It is hard now, but it was hard then too. One of the things that I laughed about, Jillian, internally was when you said, when he rang my doorbell, that shit wouldn't happen now. You meet at a mutually agreed to spot where you get to keep, your home address away and that kind of jazz as well too. And that's because that's the nature of what dating has done. Some parts of dating are probably better than they were. But we wanted to talk about dating with you all today because there was an article I found on the Today Show website, and I'll put the link in the description, and you can read it for yourself. But they basically give 7 tips. And so what we wanted to do today was frame our conversation around those 7 tips. And so I will read the first tip, and Amber and Jillian and I will reply to it as best we can. And again, this isn't to tell you what to do, but we wanted to give you an example of why you might feel what you feel. And we want to help you in this completely batshit crazy hellscape of grief. Whenever you decide to date again, it's like, oh, good. I want to open my life to more bullshit because that feels like a good idea. And we do it because we're hopeful. And so that brings me to the first point they say, which is know when you're ready. So, Amber and Jillian, if I recall correctly, you both have been on dates since your spouse has passed. When did you know?
Call it that.
Well, and to say know when you're ready might not be the best term, but when did you think you were ready?
I'm gonna say I don't know if I was ready to date as much as I was ready to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being very honest, and it was about maybe 10 and a half months after my husband passed when I felt like I wanted to have sex. I needed, the touch of, I just needed that whole entire like experience. I say I'm human. I miss having sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what kind of led me to date, was because, I wanted to at least have it with somebody that I knew and, had a relationship with, because I wanted my first time. I knew the first time that I had sex was not going to be easy, even though I wanted to have sex, it was not. So I knew I wanted to be with someone who at least knew me, because I felt like the first time that I had sex, it would kind of wipe out like the last remnants of my husband's dick being up inside of me. putting someone else's dick in there. I know that might sound crazy.
I just want to point
We
out
are
that
getting
when a dick goes in,
raw.
it doesn't go, well, we're taking these pictures off the wall. None of this shit's going to be here. We're getting that out of here. Who put this carpet down here? I don't like this carpet at all. We're getting hardwood flooring in here, sister.
Love it.
But
I
no,
love
but
it.
that
Raw
was
and
my,
real.
like
I love it.
illogical thinking, like at the time, like, So that's when I said, I was going to, and Lord knows I got a whole lot of naysayers, like, it's not time, Jillian. It's not time. And you know what? Like what really fucking pissed me off about those people the most? A lot of my friends who would say that, it would be the same friends who were going home to their husbands and who were going home, and then, but they would be telling me that it's too early for you to date. You sure you want to date? It's too early. And so, but I knew, because like I said, I wanted to have sex and I knew it was time for me, because if not, I was just going to go crazy because of something called widowed fire, which we can delve into in another episode. Um, but yeah, so that's what kind of catapulted me back into the dating scene. And let
Amber?
me just the first time I did have sex,
Mhm.
I cried like a baby. I cried like a baby. I felt bad for the guy. He felt so bad. Like, I feel like I raped you. And I'm
Oh,
like,
Jesus.
no, you didn't.
Okay, this is one on YouTube. We're gonna have to say grape. You can't say that.
No, but I felt like he
Oh, my
raped
God.
me.
I feel like that
he,
was a
no,
great
he said I
use
felt
to
like I
light up a
raped
blunt
you.
or take another gummy.
Yes. He said I felt like I raped you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. It's just me. And I miss my husband. And then he's like, so now you're telling me after we had sex that you miss your husband? Yes.
Ah, okay.
But
We're
yeah.
gonna circle back to that because there's an interesting point there, and you've alluded to that from before, and I think it might be worth touching base on as well too. But Amber, you said you wouldn't call it dating. All right, what would you call it?
I was out of my fucking mind.
Well, thanks for summing that up real well.
Yeah, you want to elaborate on that just a little bit, please?
just yeah.
So after it was probably about 3-4 months, maybe I really don't know. I would give it 3 to 6 months, somewhere in that time frame. I just felt like this overwhelming feeling of loneliness, and I said, okay, let me just go and try to get touch. All I wanted was touch. I didn't want the relationship. I didn't want something in my life like that. I didn't want all that. I just wanted the touch and the companionship. And I did like Jillian. I cried like a fucking baby. I went home and I sat in the shower. I dosed like a half a bottle of soap. I washed like 12 times. Like I was not happy with myself. Um, and then I kind of just like after I moved out here, so it was about a year later. I moved out here and I was just like, I just found myself missing conversations with a man, like having something about that tone of voice and just like even just an embrace, a hug. And then my son started bringing it up. So I said, okay, well, maybe it might be a good time just to see what's out there. And then I was like, nope, not for me. I saw what was out there and I heard what was out there. I tried. I talked to this one guy and we had the same birthdays and he was really trying to date me. But he was very aggressive, like not in a negative way. It was just like his personality was just very So I just didn't feel comfortable. And then another guy I tried to talk to, like I actually did like him. And I think I mentioned him before. We went to the same high school. And so we started talking and whatnot. And he actually bought me a plane ticket to go out and visit him. I was supposed to go for New Year's. And right before then, I started noticing little things. Like if I would say, "Oh, this is a red flag to me," he would be combative against that. Oh, why does it have to be a red flag? Why is he? Why you gotta look at it like that? You can't look at it like this. And I'm just like, I'm just expressing how I feel. Like, what's wrong with that? But then he started making sly remarks, and one day I knew he was having a bad day, but I'm not with you. I've already been through that situation in a marriage. You know, you've been through a bad day and you take it out on me. I've been through that. I'm not trying to go through that with somebody I don't even fucking know. Right. And one day I was telling him something and he was like, "Your storytelling is trash." And I was like,
No.
um, fuck you. Like, what the fuck? And I was taken back. Like, what the fuck? Like, how dare you? So it took me a minute to process it. And the next day, I must have said something to him, or he said something, and I said, I don't know, maybe if it's not trash like my storytelling. I was very like, I came off like a bitch. He's like, "You're so passive aggressive, and you don't even understand." And then it just turned into this angry old man, and then he started complaining about the show Wednesday and about how the girl is really an adult, and it's like it's weird to him that they get adults to be playing children. And I was just like, I don't want this. I can't deal with this. I don't want to date. I'm not set up for it. I can't, because this is what it's like. If you're already acting out and acting weird like that, and we're not even officially dating, I can only imagine what it's like being in a fucking relationship with you. And I've learned a lot along the way, like a lot of reflecting and all the shit that me and my husband went through. And I'm just like, as fucked up as it sounds, like, yeah, that I'm in this situation, but like we talked about before, this is my chance now. I get to do something that I want to do.
Mhm.
Why do I want to take that just to give myself to somebody else now? Like, this was almost like a eye opener for me and from the universe. Like, bitch, you need to be by yourself for a little while. Like,
Mhm.
you need to sit the fuck down, be with you and your kids, build something, and do something with your life. Don't just go give it to another man. So I'm just at the point like I don't want to date. I'm good.
Yeah, it's as I've shared, I have been on one date since my wife passed, and I didn't tell anybody about it because for a multitude of reasons. One of the reasons was because basically the day after my wife passed, and I had to tell my kids, my boys, about what happened. Um, Within a few hours, my oldest said, are you going to replace mom? Literally, the words he said, "Are you going to replace mom?" And I'm like, well, there goes the rest of whatever I had of my heart, just ripped to shreds. Because I'm like, fuck no. But you don't tell that to a grieving 12-year-old because that's where bad things happen. So instead, what I told him, I said, buddy, I'm nowhere near that brain right now. I there may come a time, I don't know, but right now isn't that time. I wouldn't worry about it. So about 7 months later, um, I stumbled onto Bumble. Hey, that rhymed. Go me. And I don't mean stumbled into like, oh, look, I accidentally filled out a profile. But it was, I didn't know what it was. I was reading an article from something, and somebody in that article had said about, and it's kind of like dating on Bumble. I'm like, the fuck is Bumble? And so I read into it a little bit. I'm like, oh, well, this okay. I'm a person who, kind of relies on serendipity for experiences. And I'm like, well, let's see what this is. And so I went and I explored. I'm like, okay, sure, give it a try. And matched with a person in my area, and we chatted for about 2 weeks, and conversation went well, and then we worked out a time to meet up for coffee, and that experience, um I thought it was just the anxiety of something new that was making my whole body just like I could feel my anxiety in a way that I hadn't felt for a very long time. um and apparently I was very charming. And so she invited me back to her place, and I was kind of oblivious. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess just it's comfortable. Like I didn't think anything. I wish I could tell you I knew what was going to happen. I don't have a fucking clue. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to being pursued. I'm not used to being wanted. The last 10 years of my marriage, I was needed. And that's a very different experience, and so I didn't know what the fuck that felt like. And, one thing led to another, and suddenly it's, naked fun time, except in my head, it wasn't. And I remember thinking, what the fuck? Like, I just, my brain could not process any of it. Since then, I call it the Bumble fiasco because I was nowhere near where I thought I was. And what I thought was a relationship thing was widow's fire. And so it's like, okay. Bumble's not the place to do that. That's not because that's a whole different, crowd, so to speak. And so whenever I realized that, it took about a month of pretty distinct barriers of boundaries and the person pushing against them, because she couldn't understand what changed, and I tried to explain it as best I could. Of course, I thought she should have understood. She is a therapist. But I talked to my therapist about it later, and she goes, "Oh no, we're fucking idiots." She said, "We're really good about helping people. We're terrible about accepting it ourselves." And so I was like, "Of course you are." And so there's a part of me that, as I've heard both you share your story, that now has different food for thought. Because while I assumed it was like, well, I just screwed up something, I wonder if it was one of those, no, maybe I needed to get that out of my system, so to speak, that first time.
Yeah.
Because the widow's fire has peaked at other times since then, but I've not acted in a way that it's, that I felt, I've not done anything about it since, so to speak, with another person. So it's the knowing when it's time question. It's subjective, and that's why I think, as we've talked about the story, it's like when I thought it was time, it wasn't time. Now, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's really big, because I think for this time thing, everyone gets caught a lot of times we get caught up on, well, how soon is too soon, how, and everyone's different. On the websites that I've been on, the widows groups, I mean, you see some people that are like, I buried my husband on a Thursday, and Thursday night I slept with somebody else, or and some people will say, no, it's been like 5 years and I still can't even imagine being with another person, and I still, and it doesn't make the person who slept with someone that night any more wrong or any more right than the person who said 5 years. Everybody's journey for
Is
when,
different.
yeah. And sometimes, like you said, Lee, you may think you were ready, and then get in the situation and realize, no, you are not ready. And if that happens, you have every right to be like, nope, I changed my mind, or nope, I'm not ready for this, or nope, don't think just because you are in it or you started that you have to just see it out, or then, or whatever it is, just because you felt you were ready and then realized you were not.
And I think go ahead, Amber.
I see a common theme with the widow's fire, that it's within that first, I'm gonna just call it a first year, but I typically, the first couple months, the first 6 months, within that first 7 months, I give it, that people are like, oh yeah, 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 I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. But like Lee said, I didn't realize it was just a widow's fire. I thought I was ready, because the widow's fire comes with so much more than just the sexual energy. It's your built up emotions that are behind it. It's the fact that you're grieving, you're missing your loved one. You're missing their touch. You're missing, everything about them, and your body is going into almost like a sense, like, I hope nobody takes this wrong, but like a withdrawal from drugs. Your
It
body
is.
is going through a withdrawal from not having its constant routine.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? After 3 months, it's like, okay, wait a minute. We've been doing this, I'm used to a
For
week,
years.
maybe
Yes.
two, when shit's really crazy. But now we're doing the extreme. What the fuck is going on? We need
Mhm.
this. What is it? And that's where we tend to, a lot of us, oh no, they're saying the right things. And maybe I found my next person. And oh, they're so romantic. Oh, they're just so gorgeous. Or they're so handsome. Or, what are that? And it's not even, it's just not as sensibly thinking. It's just all of that withdrawal, just like a body would, I need this, I need this, I need this, just detoxing from what we're used to. And that's why and later on, I've had it. Like, I shouldn't, like, that
Mhm.
was retarded. That's why I sat in the shower and used a half a bottle, because I was like,
Mhm.
you stupid dummy, what are you doing? But I had to realize later on down the road, it's normal and it's gonna happen. Not everybody will do it,
Mhm.
and that's fine. Doesn't make them, like Jillian said, it doesn't make you any better of a widow or anything, because there are some, I know I'm going off on a side note right here for a second, but there are some people who who are widowed, and they haven't created a relationship with somebody else, or they even haven't even touched another person, and they frown upon those who have,
Getting
and
judged.
that's not right.
Yeah.
And that's the point I think that we're trying to highlight here as well too, is know when you're ready. And so the question is, when you're ready, it's going to be different for each person. There are some who might find somebody literally within a month, and if that's the case, dude, awesome. And
Yeah.
if it's somebody who takes 5 years, dude, awesome, I'm glad you found
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
And I think what we've been highlighting here about knowing when you're ready is also knowing when to step back and see. That's a whole shift of mind that probably is another episode, because realistically, that's a mindset that probably didn't exist 20 years ago.
Right.
That ability to be in a moment and go, wait, this isn't right, I need to back out. And that's a whole nother dynamic of personality and sexuality that we might want to talk about at another time.
But
But I
even in
think,
history, because we've said it before, males, and even today, widowers are quicker within 2 years to get married.
yep,
Back then, they would, okay, you're getting married to Uncle Mark now. Like,
Uncle Daddy Mark, that's a weird sentence to say out loud.
But I also think it's important to like understand or know yourself to know when you're ready. But something that Amber said got me thinking about too. It's important to know also like why you're ready.
Yes.
What is driving you to want to go out there again? Is it I just need touch? I just need someone to call me beautiful. I
Mhm.
just need someone to hold my hand again. I just need someone, or I just need to have sex, or but just understand what it is that is pushing you, and that what that underlying thing is. Because once you label it and you know it, then you won't say, well, I need another relationship, when maybe all you need is just, someone to take you to the movies once in a while, or someone
Mhm.
to take you out to dinner, or just
That
needing
part I don't know. As a man, it's always my job to do those things, so I don't know which.
that's a whole nother
Again,
conversation.
another. But I think that also brings up very well what the second piece of advice is that they give in the article, which is know that it's okay to compare. And they go on to say that human beings compare everything. It's in our nature. And frankly, yes, we do that. We learn how to compare. We do it every day when we drive. We're comparing how far away that car down the road is versus how far we can get out in front of them to decide to turn. Little things like
Everything we
that.
compare.
And comparing new people to your old love, that's not terrible. It's kind of saying they're never going to be the same as you had. However, there were things that your partner had from before that might be good for you to have still, or maybe something different. What when you hear when it's okay to compare, it says, they also say, don't hold yourself to unreasonable standards. What would you consider to be unreasonable standards?
Oh, that's a good
like
question. I think people tend to, they'll take their spouse and they'll put their spouse on a higher pedestal than what they were actually anyway. and then say, okay, now I need above that. So let's say, for instance, my husband made $300,000 a year, right? And he would help me with the kids. We had great family trips and all that stuff, and then I would double that up and be like, oh my God, he was always there. He was out all, he even planned the vacations. He did all the extra, right? And now I'm like, okay, well, now I'm looking for a man who makes $1 million a year. And, he's going to do this and he's going to do that. He has to take care of this and he has to pay all of our bills because I think people just tend to overdo it because they don't want to face reality of there's a change that just is inevitable. And that's where they get the thing of maybe that goes back to when you're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it's okay to compare, because going back to what Lee said, like for example, well, now what I said was my husband was, incredibly chivalrous, and that's something that he was. And so any relationship that I go into, I think like, yeah, I will have like a certain expectation of like, okay, you need to hold the car door or open the car door for me, or you need to, and those things to me are just a healthy expectation. But when you start saying that, I need you to go about and do everything in the same way my spouse did, because my spouse did this, or my spouse did this, or I'm used to this, or, etc. Or you expect, it's one thing to want to reach kind of the same end, which is happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're expecting it to flow or it to come by the same means as your last relationship, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak, and you're setting yourself up to have an unrealistic expectation. And I do definitely agree with what Amber said, because I think that sometimes we have a tendency to put our loved ones, our spouses up on pedestals, and sometimes we only focus on the good, the good, and we remember the good times, or remember the good times, and we kind of put the bad times in a box, and we don't talk about them, and we don't focus on them, and we don't look at them. And I used to think that by acknowledging Richard's faults and talking about them, that in some way that was being a little disrespectful to him, or some way that wasn't fair, because he's not here now to answer for his, or to talk about all those bad things, because I felt that was either dishonoring or this. No, but it's just part of looking at an experience, the experience that I had with him objectively, and reflecting on it objectively, and just and just using that to kind of, because let's face it, our spouses gave us like a roadmap to either things that we like, things that we don't like, how we want to be treated, how we don't want to be treated, how, and there's nothing wrong with using that kind of as like a litmus paper or a barometer for your next relationship, as long as you're realistic and you don't expect to find a cookie cutter carbon copy of what you had.
Oh yeah.
Because, and I think that's a big part of the unrealistic standards, and that's the balancing act between, what you feel you deserve, because that's a part of the conversation too. It's like, yeah, nobody deserves to be treated like crap. Nobody deserves to be berated or belittled. Nobody deserves to be denigrated as a human person. So yes, there are certain things that we want as a person. And yes, most certainly the person that we fell in love with, that we made a relationship with, had part of those qualities. Awesome. Those, there were things that person did that helped get you to that point that is, I think, reasonable. The unreasonable, the unrealistic standard comes from, it has to be like the same way. To me, it's like, no, that's not how this works. No, and maybe it's because of the way I view my faith in particular, because, as the way I read the creation stories of Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 from scripture, it says we were made in the image of God. Well, not a single one of us looks alike. Even twins have subtle variations. So rather than try to find somebody exactly like my spouse, or experience a different image of God through somebody else, to me, I meant to experience another image of God, not the exact same one I had. Do I miss that image? Oh, every fucking day I do. I miss her. The past 2 days, I in particular have just at one point, and it's because I've been able to go back and watch a show that she and I watched together that I haven't been able to watch since then. And so I went back and I finished it. And I laid there last night crying through a science fiction episode of it's Star Trek Picard. For those who, if you didn't know, I'm a giant nerd. I'm a nerd. But it was a show, Star Trek's was stuff that any of the Star Trek stuff we loved. And I remember laying there going, oh, she'd have loved that line. I literally said she would have loved that. She'd have loved that. And I'm crying while I'm watching it. So no, I'm not going to find her because I'm not supposed to.
Mhm.
And that is a hard thing to accept.
That people really rebel against change. It
Yes.
is hard. And I try to remind people, I get that's what you want. That's what you want back. But if you were meant to have that, you would have that. We have to make changes in life. And unfortunately, sometimes those changes fucking suck and they hurt. And they feel like it's the end of life. They feel like there's no other way. But at the same time, there are other blessings. There is more than just the one that you admired most at that time. It's just like when we were growing up, our childhood days and our high school days, those were the best nights, going to the beaches, having bonfires. We grow up talking about, oh, I wish I could go back to those days. Oh, we want to go back to the old days, but we can't. And it's the same thing with our marriages. Yeah, I love the hell out of my husband. I'll be the first to tell you he was an asshole, but he was my asshole. He was my asshole.
Right.
That man spoiled me. He spoiled me in so many ways. But at the same time, there were times I felt like he picked me up and dropped me face first. Not it didn't physically happen. Let me just clear that up. But that's just some of the things that we went through. But I would not trade that 6 years with him for nothing. Those are so many lessons learned, so many values and morals instilled in us that I had no idea that I get to pass on to our children now. But comparing, I did. I was like, oh, look, that man, even little stupid things. Look, that man has hair like my husband. Well, maybe it'll work out. And then he comes to be a fucking weirdo. Oh yeah, let me back up. Because those we have to see those. We have to get those slaps in the face. Right? Because for me, I'll tell y'all my story. I'll tell you every bit about it because I've done stupid things. Because I didn't always think because I was too emotional. But going through that and having those experiences and coming to a point where I realized I had to be honest with myself. I'm not ready to date because there's still things I need to heal from, and there's still too many things that I would expect. Like Jillian said, I expect courtship. I expect you to open that door. That is just a soft expectation. But yeah, we can't expect that from men these days. You know what I mean? There's things that my husband did that I would expect a man to do. I didn't expect that man to do it. He don't know. He don't know what my husband did for me, and I'm not about to sit here and tell you.
On behalf of all the non-master plumber men that you might talk to, I can't do pipe work. Sorry, I can't. You'll have to call somebody. You can't
lay that pipe. Get off my
I can lay that pipe, but I can't run that pipe in weird angles.
Never ever say that you can't lay pipe.
I never said I can't lay pipe. I said I'm not a master plumber. I can't make that shit turn.
Can I just say, one of the realizations that I had the other day, when I was just sitting there reflecting on just a lot of different things, because I know that since Richard has passed, I have changed a lot through a lot of reflecting and just a lot more living and just reflecting and reading and growing. And sometimes I wonder, like, what would Richard, like, would the person I am now be the same? Like, would we still work as good as we did? Because I know that I'm no longer the same person. I have changed. And so especially when Amber was talking about it, we all wish we can go back to that high school bonfire. We all wish, and that's what kind of made me like go back to that thinking that I had the other day, because we might go back to that high school bonfire and be like, oh, this wasn't as great as I thought it was. What was I
Right.
thinking? Like, like, oh shit, this is pretty lame. But I mean, and not to say that I would ever go back to my marriage and think it was lame, but I would just, think like, would would we still have that, like what we had? Because I am not the same person that
Mhm.
I was, that I've had to grow into, you know, as a widow.
Mhm. And when we talk about looking back, it's the rose-colored nostalgia, those rose-colored glasses. We look back and everything is beautiful and wonderful. In reality, they aren't. And I think if when we are honest with ourselves, and that's part of about the knowing when it's time to date, when you're ready, is when you're able to look honestly and not just quickly, because there are times people are like, oh, I know my significant other had flaws, but no, hang on, pause a moment. Don't just skip over that. Because whenever we're able to have those kind of conversations, that opens us up to the next piece of advice this article gives, which is be open to new packages. And the reason I think that matters is because whenever we are possess the ability to be candid about our spouse and our significant other and the one with whom we built a life, whenever we're able to see the pros and the cons and the fact that we love them not in spite of the cons, but alongside the cons and alongside the pros, I think it helps change our perspective. It allows us to see the something new, that somebody new might have. And so I want to ask this question. Yes, you talked, Jillian, you talked about the chivalry, and Amber, you talked about the fact that you were spoiled. And what what are some of the new packages? What are some of the new parts that you have observed in others that made you go, oh, that my other didn't have that, but that's kind of cool. I kind of like that. Have there been other parts of the new packages that you've seen? Just real quick side note, in this case, I don't mean packages as a thing for genitalia. Just although we have that humor throughout everything we do, for this moment, I don't mean packages as a euphemism for wiener.
I haven't
I think
seen
you
any
just wanted to
comparable
say wiener.
packages.
Yeah, I just like saying wiener. Fun. What?
He said,
See, it's you can't help but giggle. I'm gonna be 85 years old. And I hear someone say wiener. I'll go. I'm gonna. I know it.
What have I seen different? This is a very interesting question at this time in my life.
So while
I'll say,
go ahead.
one of the things that I will say is that my husband sometimes did not like exhibit like the zest and the zeal for life
Mm-hmm.
and adventure, and just he really did not. Not to say that he was like lazy and ungrateful, and no, but he just, he that just wasn't like his thing. He wasn't a very animated man. He wasn't a very, so something that I have observed that I like now is I love people who are like animated. I love men who have this drive to just get out and experience life and all it has to offer, and they want to try new things, and then they're like, oh, for like a first date, like let's go zip lining, or let's, like do things like those type of, like let's just get out there and experience things. I like that. And it wasn't until I experienced that I was like, wow. Because my husband was always like safe. Everything was like
Mm-hmm.
playing it safe. Like I remember one time I went bungee jumping with my nephew at like some amusement park, one of those bungee jump type rides, or Superman, Peter Pan, whatever you want to call them. And I remember posting it. I remember less than like 2 minutes after I posted, my husband called me. What are you doing? As a mom, why would you take that type of a chance? And oh my gosh, no, Jillian. Like, what the fuck? Are you trying to like leave your daughter motherless? And like, no, you are not supposed to take those type of risks. Like he was yelling at me for like taking taking those type of risks with my life that I was like, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. You're right. It was reckless and but now I would be like, what the fuck do you mean?
If I told my wife she shouldn't do anything like that, she would cut my balls off and make sure I was awake while it was happening.
Cameron was all about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was an adrenaline junkie. That
When
man, we did fireworks 4th of July one year, and him and his cousin were lighting them off and then running. It got to the point he was like, "Fuck it," he lit it up and then just stood there and watched them come back down. That was Cameron. That was Cameron. What was that slingshot? The one that they put you in the ball and like
Yeah.
all that. It's him.
Like it's funny that you said that. I'm sorry, Leaks. I know you're about to say
No, go
something.
ahead. I can't always talk, but keep going.
We know. No, I'm just kidding. But it's funny because that's really like Richard for who I was then. Like I always tell people, like he still to this day is like one of the smartest men that I've ever known, like intellectually. Like he was intellectual, his music acumen, sports acumen, like he was very analytical, he was very methodical, he was like everything that he did, it was meticulous, it was, and he was always safe, he was always reliable, he was always, and that at that time was what I needed, and I like craved that sense of safety, reliability, methodical, what. But now I like seeing that the whole adrenaline like junkie, like that being adrenaline driven and that rush and just like wanting to do some more exciting things. To me, that is a really appealing package. Like it really is. Whereas it may not have been 10 years ago. And I think that's kind of like how we grow and change and we work on ourselves and to kind of figure out who exactly we are now. And I think that would be a good segue to know when it's time to date is when you're kind of sure who you are in this new season of life. And you may not know exactly what you want because you're still trying to figure that out, but you do have a good idea of who you are, and that's
I would want opposite. I would want somebody who actually holds a conversation with me to hear me, to understand me, not to respond to me, and not to just already have their own perception and go on that way. And that's what it is. I'm right. Whether I'm wrong, I'm right. I'm still right. Like, I need the opposite. I need somebody who educates me instead of just saying, here, go do it, and expecting me to already be master. You know what I mean? I need it, that's what I need, the patience, understanding, and I don't know. I'm not gonna go there, but that I would need that like that deeper intellect to teach me something. Not to just say this is what it is because I said it is because I did the research or I read it or because I know. Like actually take the time to sit there with me and go through it with me. Like my husband and I, we were a team like that, but there were just certain things that I see now. I need he couldn't provide to me because I needed to learn. That's what I needed, if that makes sense. And just like anything that he taught me, I see now, like, okay, I could use this. But at the same time, looking at everything that he did, all the life he brought to me, he only made me that much more stronger and independent. So
It's
it would
interesting.
be a better.
It's interesting you brought up, that phrase that I see now. And I believe it was a conversation we had before the episode started we were talking, or maybe it was as the start. I'll remember for a moment. It is a bit of a withdrawal recovery from addiction kind of reality, because whenever people are in the thralls of addiction, there's actions they say and do that they justify in that moment. Why? Because they're in the throes of that addiction. In relationships, I think that I'm not equating the two, but I'm saying that mindset of there are probably peculiarities and relationship quirks that each of us have, that in the midst of the relationship, we're like, okay, that's just, one thing, I'll just roll with it. Fine. But then as we look back, we're going, maybe I didn't want that. Because for me,
Yeah.
the key, I am aware that anybody I'm with from here on out is somebody who, is active, is working to take care of themselves as well too. um One of the things that there's an episode we're going to talk about that's coming up down the pike, is taking our spouse off the pedestal, which is what we were talking about a little bit earlier too, because there was a fight brewing between my wife and I, that it hadn't quite made its peak yet, but it was brewing. And it had to do with the way she took care of her health, and was that she didn't, because her particular health was so complicated, so confusing. And I know it was demoralizing. I get it. I watched it. I walked alongside her for that. Um, and I saw how much she would try and try, and there was no result that was a good result. But she just kind of gave up. And for me, that hurt. It was, you don't give a shit enough about me and your boys to try. And I know that's not what that was, but that's how it felt. And so for me, anybody who I'm with, in wedding vows, often they talk about in sickness and in health. I don't want sickness to be the way of life. I want it to be that, yes, we all get sick. I get that. And if you had a thing that happened that's out of your control, I get that too. But please be trying. Please be active. Please be trying I don't want to say improve yourself, but just be healthy. And for me, that has to be part of the package. That doesn't mean I want somebody who's going to be running marathons, because fuck that. I'm not getting up that early in the morning to go sit. No, I'm tired. But I just want somebody who cares enough. And I think, as I look at potential new packages, which is a terrible way to say about, potential dating person. All right, this package here has some used miles on it, but it's really reliable. I do want to make sure it's somebody who does take their health seriously. But I also recognize that there's a drawback to that. I have to be careful, because I don't want to make that an idol. I don't want to make that a make or break deal breaker. Which then brings me to the next point. And I think this might be the most important point they make in this article. And I want to read it in its entirety, because I think it's worth hearing. And this is one that I hear many of the people within our community don't experience. And it's this. Number 4, enlist a dating village. Build a group of people around you who are positive and encourage you to get out there again. Ask them to support you and to not let you give up. Recruit friends who will keep you motivated and who have good instincts on people. Jillian, I think about when you met your husband, you were just about to be like, and to hell with all this. And that one person said, wait a minute. So let me ask you both this question. Do you feel like you have a dating village that helps you if you were to start dating now?
I'm going to be very honest with you. If it wasn't for Widowed Rising, and, even before that, another widow group, my answer would be no. Because within my family, the first sign of heartbreak, the first sign of advert, the first sign of it's all, shut it down now.
Mm-hmm.
Too fragile. You're not ready. Shut it down. But I think, Widowed Rising, and just, reading and just working on myself, and just, I feel supported. I feel supported. And I think that's why we as Widowed, we seek out groups, because it's so important to be around people who understand your journey, and who will say to you, yeah, you've had a few shitty dates, but if this is what you want to do, keep on going because you can find your person. And I don't think I have that in my family. I don't even really think I have that with my friends. Um, so I think those type of support communities are definitely key. And I would tell everyone who's watching to join a good one, like Widowed Rising.
Just
For sure.
putting that out there.
Yes, just putting that out there.
Amber, how about you?
They will also one day be represented by Big Bros.
Fake bros hoping to deal with stupid shit since 2023.
Thanks, guys.
uh
Next time they come in for a delivery, I'm like, hey man, come check out our podcast.
Yeah,
Talked
we
about
gave
it.
you so many
be my
shout outs, we might as
testimonial.
well be
Be my
sponsored by you.
testimonial. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um,
Got any more free stuff?
I have two things I want to say. So to answer your question, um, I'm kind of with Jillian on this one. I think the community that we've grown in Widowed Rising would be right there cheering me on, supporting me. I mean, and I can say this because they've told me, Amber, go. Get your ass on the fucking date. Go. So I know they would. When it comes to my family, I'm not gonna say that they're not against me. I just feel as though they would make it a little bit difficult just because my family is very heads on. Like I am. I'm in your face. I say what it is. I'm there. That's how my family is. And given, the situation, it I think especially for my mom, she would dig a little bit harder and a little bit deeper. And that would I wouldn't even blame the guy if he'd be like, okay, this is a little too much. Like all up in their business and all kind of stuff. But I would be safe to say that yes, I would have backup on when I decided to date. Um, and the second thing I want to say, because you brought up a good point, Lee, about your situation with your wife and taking care of her health. And it is extremely important. I would hope for anybody that they would take care of their health. And also mentally. Because when you were talking about that, it brought up something that I didn't really think about moving forward if I were to get with somebody else. I need them, not want them, like I need them to be okay with their past. I need them to been able to already gone through their own work and reflected on their life and say I am at peace with the experiences I've had in my life and I'm not allowing them to affect my present or my future. Because and it's no shit talk to my husband, but he held on to a lot of stuff. And at the end of it all, as fucked up as it sounds, he gave up. And like Lee said, like, do you not give a fuck about us? Like that all the bullshit in life means more to you than what we're doing here. So I would need somebody that is like, I've done my work, I've been through shit, I've been through hell, I've seen fucked up shit if that's the case, but I'm able to move forward. And I'm not gonna let that affect it. You know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jillian. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, Amber, you bring up something really interesting because my husband and I, we spent 5 years, out of our marriage in marriage counseling. And a big part of that was so that we could effectively deal with the shit that we both were bringing into our marriage. And it's interesting because everyone tells me, well, Jill, you need to cherish, like don't ever look for a man to do that again because he was something special, because no man is going to sit with you for 5. So it was just when you said that, it just made me think about, because that's one of my expectations that I would hope, and I've been told that that's an unrealistic expectation of mine because men just don't do that.
I don't think so. Cameron is the one that set marriage counseling up for us because he saw that his wife was crying all the time. He was the one that said, I have to do something about this.
And Richard was the same thing for me. He was the one who set it up and said, no, we need this.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're gonna do. And he found our person, and he found her, and it was just funny and thinking about that, because I always thought kind of that may in the back of my head that, well, maybe that is an unrealistic expectation, that I have, like, moving forward, about a spouse being willing to go into counseling and do the work, because I think that that's, for me, that's almost like a must, especially if I was to ever consider like marriage or anything like that again. There would have to be, you know, counseling.
Well,
And
and especially, the positions that we're in. We lead a large group of people. Lee does, you and I do. And why would we not want our partner to be on that same level? We're already putting into ourselves, our family, and then, all the widowed and the people alike with Lee and his creation. So why would we not? But and I say this in like the nicest but fucked up way. Like, why would we want to waste our time with somebody who hasn't taken the
not
time to
willing.
heal themselves or willing to do the work?
Mhm.
It goes for everybody. Everybody should, but
I think the other part of it too is it's be willing to do the work. I'm not expecting
yeah,
somebody to have done the work,
Yeah.
because realistically, depending on so many factors, the work is going to be ongoing. I know
yeah,
from my
for
part, I've
sure.
done the work from just stuff from when I was a kid growing up, and but that's still an ongoing thing too. I have
Yeah,
to be conscious of that. So I don't expect somebody to have it done. I don't expect somebody to have it satisfied. I do hope and expect that I'm going to bring somebody into my life who I can model for my boys as well too, of saying, look, we keep working. There are problems and you keep working at them. Sometimes maybe you need to take a breath, maybe you need to take a step back, but it's not for the purpose of retreating, but regrouping. So you
yeah.
take a step back. So that's that idea of being engaged with the point of going forward. And I think that's part of what I want for my boys with the community that I put them into in the first place. I look at the friends that I have around us, that they are people who are always actively doing some sort of work and pushing, so to speak, to see, are you doing this? So when that question of, do I have a community of support? I think I would if I were to start into it. But there's a couple funny parts about it. The first one is the first person who talked to me about dating again was my father-in-law, which was not the person I expected. However,
Mhm.
I should have expected, because his first wife, died at about the same experience for me, where his kids were both young as well too. Which, side note, anytime somebody calls you a unicorn, it feels weird, but when it's your father-in-law calling you a unicorn, you just feel like you need either whiskey or therapy, or maybe both. Um, but for me, if I were to make it clear that I was looking to date, I would also have to do some work internally, because I am also, um, if it didn't work out, if a date didn't go well, I'm not an extrovert in the first place. I'll talk all the time, but realistically, the things that are close to me usually stay right here, and I won't talk a whole lot about them.
Yeah.
But if I do enlist a village and they say, well, what went wrong? It just didn't work. Like, to go into the details of why it didn't work, it's because I relive them. The way I experience stories, the way is I'm experiencing them again. And it's like, I don't think I really want to do that. I don't want to experience that. But that's a part of the ongoing work aspect of it as well too, that I think I was talking about.
And you know what? You made a fair point, and you kind of caught me up there where I need to rephrase my words. And yeah, you did. So I mean, and it's a lesson learned. So thank you, because I can admit, like, I like learning shit. This
Mm.
losing Cameron is put me into the situation where I get to learn stuff. And we can go into it later, like over time, y'all will get to know my story and stuff. But this is in my whole life, this is where I feel the most freedom,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
No,
So
it does. And I was gonna say it does, because if it wasn't for my husband passing, I would never have gone into the counseling field. And in the counseling field and, life coaching field, this is where I feel the most at home, the most natural, the most where I'm supposed to be. And that says something that we could say that, where we feel like where we are right now in doing what we're doing, and just that feeling it gives us, we know that we're walking in our purpose and in our path. And it came out of something so traumatic. And
Yeah.
I think, and I'm growing, I know this is a segue off of the whole dating thing, but I really,
It's not. Hang on, because I'm going to
Yeah.
spin it back. There's a connection here, a really
It,
good one. Go
but
ahead,
let me
Amber.
say too, it doesn't, I mean, and that's not to say, that we didn't enjoy the time of being a husband or wife. It's not to say
Mhm.
that we didn't enjoy that time of being tied down, so to speak, but it's a newfound freedom and everything, in my life that I've been through. For me personally, it's a new rebirth. It really feels like a rebirth, brand new to everything. But I want to go back and just say, when I say it now, I realize when you say it out loudly, when I speak of, okay, I want somebody who has done their work. It's not a matter of saying, okay, you've done your work, is completed, because every day we should remain students. There's always something new to learn until the day that we die. But what I mean by that is, I would like somebody who's aware that they have things to work on, and
Mhm.
they've at least begun the process, or they at least want to, and they're looking for the information and the guidance on how to begin that process. Because I
or,
don't want somebody in my life who is still in their past and still doing the same old, same old. I want somebody who's ready to elevate themselves so they can go and elevate with me so we can do it together. So not necessarily someone who's done it, but
Mhm.
or just as open to the idea of, if, you know, you bring up or anyone brings up, this is the thing, like when my husband said to me, Jillian, like, I think sometimes you're like, when I look at your emotions, a lot of times they're up here, they're down here, they're this, they're that, maybe this is something that we need to talk about. Maybe this is something that we need to discuss. And I think that's very important moving forward with any potential partner, that, yeah, they might not have done all their work. They might not have done any work, but they might not even know they need to do work. But if you, as the person that they care about, comes to them and with this said, hey, I've been noticing this, and maybe it's time that we, worked through it or talked about it or went to see someone who can help us work through it. You want someone too that is open to that, that
Mhm.
is open to that idea. I won't say,
yeah.
well, how old am I? And I've walked through my whole entire life and I'm pretty set in my ways. And by the way, I hate when I see that on a dating app. I
Oh,
hate
by the
when
way,
someone
that
writes, I am
that
set in
line,
my ways.
that to me is that's a flag for, oh, you're controlling. Okay, moving on. But that's a whole nother, which
Yeah.
now is a great, actually perfect transition to point 5, which we're going to skip, and I'll explain why in a moment. It's the fifth piece of advice they give is use online dating wisely, and the reason we're going to skip that right now is because that's
That's
going
a
to be part 2.
whole subject.
Right, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole another one.
So for those who are watching this and listening to this, we are not ignoring it. We just want to spend time specifically on that, because even getting to that stage takes a lot. Now,
Yeah.
the last 2 points of advice they give are absolutely imperative, not just for widowed people, but for all people. But the reason it hits us is because the grief is pronounced. The number 6, keep your quote me time end quote sacred. And this first line, I think, sums up what we were talking about. You have grown out of necessity into enjoying your own company and solitude. Make sure that you continue to do things that make you happy, and spend as much time as you need on your own too.
Yes.
When it comes to keeping your me time sacred, why do you think it is so important for you to keep your me time sacred?
Go ahead, Julie.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn
Jillian.
it.
Yeah. Yes, Mrs.
I was
Lang,
trying
we asked you a question. Can you
I was
answer it, please?
trying to give Amber the opportunity, but because and I probably need to sit with this response a little longer, but I'm going to tell you the first thing that just pops into my head. Um, as widowed people, we juggle a lot. We juggle solo parenting, we juggle jobs, we juggle, just life. And, and if we're not careful, we'll get caught up in all of those things. And we need time for ourselves because we need to grow ourselves. We need to find ourselves. We need time to hone our identity. We need time to, heal. We need time to nourish our bodies, our minds, and the only way sometimes you could do that is in silence, And it's so important. Like that to me is just up there with almost like food, water, clothing, like your basic necessities, like your needs. You need that time because if you don't, depression will set in. I mean, it will. Because you'll be running on empty. If you're pouring into everybody else, you can't pour into yourself. And you need to pour into yourself and you need to be poured into. And that's why I think that like me time, it has to be sacred because you can't go out here and date anybody else and be with anybody else if you don't even know how to be with yourself. And so that's why I think that me time is so sacred.
For sure.
Amber?
Yeah, so if you go back and right off top when you asked the question, the first thing I thought of was like remembering when Cameron was still here, my me time was very minimal. Like I had to kick everybody out or not go to an event or not go out with them just to get a little bit of me time because it was always about him, about the house, about the kids, about grocery shopping, about errands to run, about doctor's appointments, about football, about after stuff, about the plumbing business, about this, about that. It was my me time was like my shower, right? So I would take the extra time in the shower. I would spend the time to do my makeup, because it was for me. I would take the time to stay up a little later and do my nails or say, you know what, fuck it, today I'm not doing nothing but taking care of me because I had to. If I didn't take it, it wasn't just like, oh, okay, mom, okay, babe, have the day. Enjoy yourself. There was none of that, and if there was, I'm having major widow fog. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember. So and now I'm so serious because and it's not to say that there wasn't those times. I'm just kind of in that healing process of I'm going through all my bad times. I'm going through the times that I feel like it broke me. So deep down right now, if I say anything out loud and it comes out kind of bitchy and angry, it's because I'm healing through the anger.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to it expresses a little bit differently, right? But I'm aware of it because now I understand how I reacted then versus how I'm feeling about it now. I'm more mature about it now. I'm like, okay. But anyway, now I'm getting off topic. But my me time now is so important because, like Jillian said, now I'm a solo. Now all those responsibilities I had as a wife, where I had to take my time, now I really have to because everything, even though everything was on me, except for the physical part of it, now it is on me. Now the income part is on me. Now the house, the bills, the cars, everything, maintenance, shit I didn't even know about. I'm still learning stuff. Like, what the fuck? I got it. Now I'm like, okay, I know if I don't get my me time every day, I got to have somewhere in there for myself. Everybody around me is getting a freaking attitude, and you're not gonna like it. Because then we're gonna go back to, oh, mom's being crazy. Because y'all are up my ass, and I got 500,000 million other things I'm trying to get done as well, and ain't nobody helping me. So I'm gonna go put myself on timeout, and I'm gonna go sit down and have a chew of baked bros.
They need to pay you for that.
Seriously,
but
yeah, at this point, I want some money, even though they're not officially sponsoring us. They have been pimped out so many damn times on here that they should.
They need to. We need to be getting some residuals, some royalties, some royalties. But damn it, we need to be getting something.
20 milligrams per piece, 10 THC, 10 CBD. Prickly pear lemonade. Try it today. No.
Those commercials. I'm about to age myself. You know those commercials like Calgon, Take Me Away. Amber could be standing there with her little, whatever they're called, Take Me Away.
Baked Bros, take me away. Don't say that line out loud. That actually might end poorly for you. That might end up in you suddenly going on a van ride.
Let me be like Vanna and all the girls on.
Yes. But really quickly, I did want to say this, Amber, because something you said really resonated with me, and I started laughing because I just told Avery this, and I tell her this frequently. Like, mommy is a better mommy when she has time away from you. Mommy is a better mommy when she takes time for herself, and you want that. You want it, and she's like, yeah, I do, because she sees and she benefits from it. And so I think that's like so important.
The best piece of advice my mother ever gave me when I was pregnant with my now 15-year-old. No, actually, she was just born. She said, you have to take care of yourself because she needs you. And if you can't take care of you can't take care of her until you take care of yourself.
It's like, put that oxygen mask on first.
Exactly. So, and the me time thing, again, because of my job, I think to a certain degree, as a pastor, one of the things that you were taught from a very early time is you have to take Sabbath. You have to take rest. And so for me, every Monday, I am off. I'm not in the office. Yes, if there's an emergency, of course, you step into that. But the reality is, and from a theological standpoint for Christianity, it's like, God rested on the seventh day. Are you more important than God? Calm your ass down. They word it much nicer than I just did, but that's basically the theology behind it.
You don't only work one day weekly?
I work one day, but I make it look like I work 6 days. I'm really good as an actor. Actually, if you think about it, I work maybe 2 hours a week is what it looks like. My salary is awesome for 2 hours of work. But the thing that they really push on it, and because there's so many horror stories of pastors who burn out because well-meaning, kind people, volunteers for the church, want help, and that's great, and they want to do these great programs. That's great. And as a pastor, you can nickel and dime your time away fast. And so whenever Ashley died, I knew literally in that moment, well, I'm not pastoring for a while because I can't. And so I took, essentially a 100-day sabbatical from work. Not only is that built into my contract, but the church understood. They knew that it's grief, and the coming back to work has taken time, so to speak, to get into the emotional stamina of it. But that me time allows me to do a couple things. One, I get some errands done so that I can relax throughout the week, knowing that shit's done. It's because if not, nobody else is going to do it. Well, yeah, maybe somebody would, but I don't like having to call in that favor. And if I have to, fine. But if I know that, okay, on Monday, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Fantastic. So today's Monday. On the recording of this episode, it's Monday. I didn't wake my ass up till 12. Why? By God, my house was quiet. My kids were in school. My bed was super comfortable, and I needed the sleep. So I took it. And so sometimes, yeah, I'll get up earlier, 11:30, and I'll be fine. But the sacredness of the me time, the best way I can describe it is this: even ambulances go in for regular service to make sure they can operate at peak efficiency whenever there's an emergency. If ever there was an example of why we should keep me time sacredness, it's that right there. If an ambulance, a vehicle specifically designed for emergency, takes time to make sure its shit is square, so do we. Which then leads to the final thing, because the final point they bring up is be patient, persistent, and positive. And they kind of jokingly write it this way, and I think it's pretty funny. Finding new love takes time. It can take dozens of frogs to find a prince or princess. Slow the process down and try to enjoy the journey. Even if or when you get disappointed by someone, know that great love will come. Stay positive. Or they write psychotically optimistic, which might be my favorite phrase of all time right now, about this process. Anything good takes time and effort. Psychotically optimistic. God, that's hard to do, isn't it?
It really is. Because I had a question coming from that. Because I've kind of heard a lot of people say sometimes, well, if you're in the dating scene and you keep attracting like certain types of people. Now, obviously, when they say certain types of people, they're talking about certain like negative types of people, or just people, shit happen, it doesn't, then instead of being that persistent and saying, no, I'm going to power on, that means just you probably need to like take a break, go sit in a corner and kind of reflect on what you are doing to attract those types of people. So I would, or wondering what you are putting out there, that this is all that, you seem to be getting. So, because I've heard that. So I wonder where the balance is between like being that persistent, like if this is what you want, versus, well, maybe if, you need to kind of re-examine what you're getting if you keep on getting a certain type of person.
I think that swings back towards the first point they said about knowing when it's time to date. If we do find ourselves attracted to, as you put it, a negative, something negative about a person, then yeah, maybe that is a time to step back and regroup and go, okay, why? Why am I attracted to this? Because there are some people.
Why am I attracting this? Because
why am I
attracting the same type of person?
Right. And why am I attracting also, I think, brings into the fact that, what is it about me that has agreed to talk with them? Why am I missing this? Why is this part of what keeps showing up at my door? And then, and it's never a blaming the victim mentality, but I wonder if it's one of those, am I enabling people to become this because they think that's what I want? And if that's the case, what am I doing? And that's where that village part comes in as well, too, because you can say to the village, okay, what the hell am I doing here? Maybe they look at your profile. Maybe they listen to your dates, and you're going, you might want to think about doing this differently, or maybe think about doing that differently. I don't know. But I do think there's something to be said about taking a step back sometimes and reassessing. I think that's powerful too.
There's there's a lot in there that you guys just said.
Wait, you're on mute.
I'm gonna step away real quick for something, but Amber, stop mocking my ass. It's a big ass. There's a lot to mock. Stop it. I need to use the bathroom, which is literally on the other side of that door, and I figured nobody would want to see or hear that. So I'm going to mute myself and turn the video off, but I can still hear you. So please talk away.
Appreciate that consideration.
I love you all.
That message. We appreciate it. And now my train of thought is gone.
Like, there's so much that was said in that statement. That's
there was a lot said in there, and the first thing is the patience, right? And let's be honest, most of us don't have patience. We don't have patience for the things that we want. We don't have patience for the things that we need. We are very now. We live in
gratification.
Right.
Instant gratification.
And it's no different when it comes to relationships. and I see it. I mean, you can go look at the public, whether they're widowed or not, whether they just got out of a relationship. People bounce relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, just like, oh my God, maybe this person's it. Oh my God, because everybody's stuck in that whole lust part of it at first, right? They don't give it time to simmer down and really get to know the person.
I'm sorry, Amber, but like when you said that, what it kind of reminded me of? I say the best way to get over someone else is to get under someone else.
People need to stop doing that. They need to start doing that. As a widow, it doesn't work. We can tell you it doesn't work, because even then, even if it's a relationship that you're just walking away from, it's still based off of emotions. You are still detoxing from that person. It is not smart to just go and jump on another one or slide into another one. It doesn't make any damn sense, because what happens, we all know, something crazy comes out of it at the end, right? But it also goes to the whole fact of when we say who are we, because you guys kind of went from who are we attracting, but it's also who are we attracted to, because for men, and I'm gonna say this off of one guy that I know in my past, this man was attracted to a certain type of woman. He liked the Hispanic girls with the big booty, with the big old knockers, with the little waist, the long hair, the cookie cutter female in that demographic, right? And then he would go online and complain about them, because every time he got with one of them, it wasn't working out. Oh, they use me for my money. Oh, they just do this. Then why the hell do you continue to go after those women? Mm-hmm. Step outside of your box. His response was, I like what I like. Well, you're gonna get what you get.
Well, that's like saying I like eating at McDonald's every day. Why am I getting fat? Right. Well, dumbass. It's because your choices are not good.
No, and that's insanity. By definition, that is insanity.
Doing the same thing over and over,
expecting different results.
And then when it comes to the aspect of why do I keep attracting people like this, like you said, you have to look within yourself. What is it? It could be something that you're putting out there, like Lee said. Maybe you're enabling them to act a certain way for you
that is the bomb look right in the
middle. When you're attracting stuff, or somebody, it's the same way you attract anything in your life. It's that energy, that emotions, those feelings that you're putting out there. And I like telling the story of the man who went to work all the time, and he constantly, my coworkers always, they suck. My boss, he's just a jerk, and then they got him to flip his mindset. Okay, well, I go to work with people that are good. I get along with my coworkers. Your mindset is what attracts you. Well, it starts to develop your emotions, your feelings. That's what you're going to get back. So if you're sitting here talking about, I'm always messing with the pookies, and I always got bed bug Betty. Well, guess what?
Bed bug Betty. Oh shit, that's a new one.
I'm just saying, if
messing
you keep
with the pookies,
you need to stop and take a look at yourself, and what are you doing in your life? What are your requirements? Why are you not setting your boundaries? Because once you set your boundaries and assert them, people cannot get past those, because once you know your boundaries, you're going to start hearing and seeing things that try to get over your boundary wall.
And I think that is a whole other topic that we could definitely discuss as the widowed, because that is so important, is boundaries and where to draw them.
But what were the 3 P's again, Lee? It was
patience, persistence, and positive.
Okay, so we got over the patience. We know people don't have patience. It's something that we need to work on, right? Persistence. Why are you so persistent on getting with somebody else and giving all of your energy to someone else? No, hold on. Let me finish my thought.
I want to hear where this goes, because I may have to push on this a little bit, but I want to hear where this goes.
Let me finish, because when it comes to dating, right? People go out there with the mindset of, more than likely, I could be wrong, but I feel as though there's a lot, and I'll get statistics, because I don't like doing this whole I feel as though. I want to know, right?
Fact check.
I'm just saying, I will double check on this. But I feel as though people go out on dates, women especially, with the mindset of I'm gonna go find me a husband. I'm gonna go find me a man to lock him down. I'm gonna go find a man to do da 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 da. And I don't know how men think because I don't know how men think. I'm not a man, but I feel as though some men, some men go the same direction, but they're looking for something from women. So their persistence on pursuing and dating, on dating this guy, and dating this guy, and dating this guy, and dating this guy, and dating this girl, and dating this girl. Why can't you be that persistent on dating yourself? Take yourself out.
So you're talking about shifting the persistence, whereas your experience is that people that, they're persistently in the negative side of it. They're persistently making these bad choices. Spin that. So with widowhood, it's saying, no, don't be so focused on what you're not. Be patient and persistent enough to spend time with yourself.
And I think that goes back to the question I had in the beginning was, being persistent and keep data, but to what point do you go, and you used the word Lee, and I think I said reeval, but like reassess.
Yeah.
What is that you're doing, what it is that you're about, what it is that you want, who are you as a person, and what. So yeah, there is that time where it's either like, let me be positive and be persistent that maybe my person can be out there, my chapter 2, as some people call it, or I will love again, but at the same time also knowing when to
take a step,
take that break,
pull back,
reassess.
Because how many times have we
get to know yourself? Like
how many times have we seen in the group where we have members that connect with somebody, they go on a date, it doesn't work out, that person turns out to be whatever, right? And then 3-4 days later, oh my God, I'm gonna go out with this person now. Like, what?
Where's the time to?
So
why?
Yeah, and I think that what the article is trying to drive us is, and you're talking about the shadow side of it, and I think it's important to see that too, because as especially in American culture, and I think this happens in some international countries as well too, or other countries. International is redundant, sorry, which is we're task oriented. Okay, to get to this, we do. However, when it comes to grief, when it comes to love, when it comes to any of the experiences we have, they're not task oriented, they're emotion oriented. And we are fundamentally distrustful of our emotions. And I think that's why having that village to help you be patient, persistent, and positive, because if we have one bad experience or 2 bad experiences or 3 bad experiences, we end up making mountains out of molehills. And so we say, fuck it, I'm not doing any of this shit again. And you back all the way off. Well, that's not helpful either. That doesn't teach perseverance. That to me is the most important thing. Perseverance is the definition of, and the quality that I want to see in somebody. Because perseverance says, okay, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? Okay, I'll work to fix it. Let's fix that again. And that's that positivity side of it, I think, as well, too. It's not saying everything will be great. Yippee skippy. This date was atrocious. Yeah. He said things that were awful, and I almost spit up because the food was foul. And I can't believe.
I feel like that's Lee meets Mickey Mouse.
Listen, Jillian. You just did. Listen, Jillian, I'm here to tell you that this is not a turn on.
Oh my God.
Mickey's into some shit.
Now you're full, Mickey.
Mickey's safe word is Pluto. Yeah.
Yes. We had his before we started.
No, this is, I've had all my water. No, and the reason my voice gets that high is I do get animated, obviously, and that's where that goes. But that's what I think the article is trying to help us see, is that in this decision to go back out into the world of dating and all the absolute horse shit that we got to deal with, one, we've dealt with all this shit before, whether we recognize it or not. When we found the person that we were going to be with, we went through bullshit to get to them. We went through bullshit with them. We're going to go through bullshit again. If you want to be in a relationship, there's no way around it. That's how life works. I live in the
positive.
Go ahead.
As I say, I live in the country. I lived in the country pretty much my whole fucking life. I can always tell whenever it's fertilizer day, Why? It smells fucking disgusting. But I also know that fertilizer is going to bring forth life later on. That fertilizer is going to bring forth food later on. And I think sometimes that the positivity is knowing that even in the shitty moments, pun intended, that there's something coming out of that. And so keep trying. Yep, this was shit, but it's going to get me somewhere else later on.
Now, took the words right out of my mouth.
Well, it's because you had the gummy in there. So those words were just hanging around doing nothing. So I
prickly pear lemonade. I'm telling you, they're gonna see this and they're gonna be like, "Damn, that lady gave us a shot like 300 times in one episode."
Exactly.
yes, she did. She worked it.
No, but even the positive, it's like we were talking about earlier. It happens. It's a lesson. It's not meant for you to go out on a date and then find your fucking person right then and there. That, and the persistence, yeah, I get it. But I think it's important to have that balance because and this is just my opinion, maybe it's because I've done it myself. So I'm just looking at myself internally on this one. Looking for someone and not even knowing what the fuck it is I'm looking for because I'm still learning myself. Why would it's not fair. Here's my final take on dating, right? And the positive part of it is have fun with it. If you want to do it, have fun with it. Go meet new people, make friendships, build business partnerships, or whatever it is. Just build connections, have fun with it. And if you come across somebody that you are highly compatible with and you guys can see yourself making something work in a healthy way, and you take that time to build that foundation to get there, then so be it. But I think a lot of times people get into the dating world and they're just trying to find that comfort zone again because we've been told for so long you're not complete until you have somebody in your life. You're not complete until you
yeah, that's another falsehood that our culture tells us that we've heard from the beginning. You need Prince Charming, you need Snow White, and the answer is no. Whenever you go to find somebody to fill a need, that's all it's going to be. When you find somebody who helps enhance you, that you then also enhance, then and only then are you in the good space for this. At least that's my opinion. Who knows? I might be completely full of shit. I'm not. I took a dump earlier.
It's true. And then you build on that.
Because and one of the things, and I've said this before. I don't know if I ever said it on a podcast, but I definitely have said, and it became clear that one way, that when you're ready to date is when you're okay too with being alone. Right. Because if you're not okay with being alone, then you're automatically dating at a deficit.
Yeah.
And
you're about to become addicted.
Yeah.
In a bad way.
Yeah.
A bad addiction.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be willing to accept things and settle for things and do that you wouldn't do if you were coming from a place of wholeness. And I think that's why it's so important, even, to tie it all into the self-care about pouring into you, so that when you do go out and date, if you go out and date from a standpoint of, I'm good with being alone. I've done the work. I've poured into me. I am looking, as Lee said, to date someone to enhance my life, not because I need someone in my life. And I think that we need to learn that. And you're right. Society tells you at every step, you need that other person, from the fairy tales that we read, when we were kids growing up, to the movies we see now. Like, I swear, Hallmark, fucking Hallmark.
Fuck Hallmark Channel. Fuck all of that shit.
If you watch Hallmark, like, during the holidays, you have to fall in love if you're fucking single. If you're fucking single, you must fall in love according to Hallmark, or you're just lonely. And they, and it's like the media spews shit like that. Like, you have to fall in love, you have to have that person, you have to have that part. And so yeah, so we think, yeah, we're dating because we need somebody, but we really like need to be okay with being with ourselves before we go out and find that next person, no matter or despite what society, social media, whoever says.
Side note, whilst I rail against Hallmark Channel and its depiction of love, which I should always, I also will rail against the action movie version of love. So things like the Fast and the Furious relationships, fuck off. That doesn't happen. The things like The Replacements with
Anything
Sylvester
in that movie
Stallone.
happen?
Yeah, if you look to movies to define what your relationship should be, you need to go see a therapist. It's not Romeo and Juliet ended in death. Whenever you go and look at a story and use that to define your story, you're gonna end poorly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lee, you brought up a point a while ago about the addiction, like you just said right now too. It becomes in a very bad way. It starts off with like that whole codependency,
Mm-hmm.
and then you become addicted to that person.
And it feels
And
good when you're in it.
Yeah.
And like you said,
That dopamine, but that's what it is. It's that dopamine release
Yeah.
that we're those dopamine junkies.
And you had said earlier, you didn't want to compare it to, a marriage and a drug, but I will, because I've been on that side of addiction before. And I've also been on the side of addicted to my husband. And they are similar, because you get in that state of where you need it, you need it, you need it. You don't know what you're going to do without it. You'll do anything for it. You just have to keep it around. Even if it's around, not to touch it, it just has to be around. You have to have it in your presence. And for a long time, it was the same thing with Cameron. To have him, I have to have him just as long as he's around, even if I'm around, and it got to the point, I think he even had the same for me, because it was, okay, now I want you to come to the job sites with me. Like, we were literally together 24/7 at times, and it really does become detrimental to any relationship. You have to have your you time. You have to have separate time, because it's healthy for any relationship if you're going to be in one. Yeah. You have to have that time apart. You have to have your personal time. You have to live your life, and then you have to have that time just to miss each other.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jillian.
No, I was going to say absence does make the heart grow fonder. Just ask a widow or
slightly delirious, delusional, widow, friar, frog, brained. It's all terrible. But
frog brain.
Yep, there you go. See, I think that we've come to a good conclusion for this episode, and unless there's something else that you two want to say, I think I can.
Something else I want to say.
Is this another
that doesn't involve a sponsorship deal that we don't have yet. Don't say it.
10 pieces of case.
I might have to find the Baked Bros like logo and just plop it right in when I edit this video so that it can always be seen there.
Brought to you by Baked Bros.
Holy damn! I feel like I got punched by weed.
Good feeling.
Time to get stony baloney. Oh yeah. That's what it says.
Anywho, on that happy note, as we bring episode 1 to its conclusion, my hope, and I think our hope, is that you have seen that the decision to date is not easy, that it does not happen lightly, and that there are pitfalls that can occur. And we don't want you to just go into the dating world just because you think you should or just because you have to. We want it to be something that it helps you grow, because yes, this traumatic hellscape of life that you've had to go through, it can be an opportunity or it can be an anchor. There is a bit of it that's your choice. And if you choose to step and go back out into the world and potentially find somebody else to be with, yeah, there's going to be some work you got to do. And so we want to help you do it in a way that gives you the enhancement that you can be for your next step. This isn't easy, and we will gladly be your village. But thank you for trusting us to listen to us. Also trusting us to say, I disagree with you. because you can disagree with us. Your experience might be wildly different. And if it is, share it with us. Let us know. Because the goal of this podcast has never been to give you a guide of how to do it, but stories of why we have done it so that you can grow into it as well too for yourself. You are not alone in this hellscape. We will accompany you as far as you'll have us. Thank you for being here with us again.
Thank you.
Bye.